Good morning, everyone. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you to the third edition of the Global Business and Management Education Expo. We're delighted to kickstart the Expo with a fantastic panel discussion, the startup story. Joining me today, I've got two fantastic guests, Mr. Anand Kumar and Mr. Ajitabh Bharti. So Anand is, is a managing partner at Pier Counsel. He's also one of the top 10 angel investors in India. He's got a rich experience of 22 years, and he's worked with a lot of startups, investing in them, guiding them, mentoring them, and of course he's running a very successful business in the field of law. Ajitabh has had a rich career, again, over 22 years of experience, worked in the banking industry largely, worked with fantastic brands like Axis Bank, Barclays Bank, and more recently, he decided to start his entrepreneurial venture, Ship 90, right? So let me start by extending a very warm welcome to you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for making time and coming here today. We're delighted to have you here.
Thank you.
I'd like to maybe start the discussion by asking you a question, Anand. So you're an angel investor. You're, always looking at different startup ideas, evaluating them, looking at them. I wanted to ask you, when you're looking at a startup, how do you normally shortlist them? How do you evaluate them?
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for such a nice introduction, Amit. I don't know whether, are you guys aware of what angel investing is? So, it's not recent phenomenon now. When I started my career, there was nothing called angel investment in this country, right? So, I don't know whether I told you, 2006, the first time we kind of structured an angel fund in India, that was called Mumbai Angel. And it was a collective group of people who came there, and my role was not as an angel investor there, but I was just structuring it as a lawyer. By profession, I'm a lawyer. So in India, what happens that, if you collectively pool money, right, and invest in various companies, that can be considered as a non-banking finance company. So it was very difficult to sort of, wade through all these laws and regulations around that. And that's how we had to structure the whole thing, that how will this run? And I'm talking of year 2006, 2007, and the legislations were also different. So we came with a very innovative structure where there was a group of people, exactly like the way you guys are sitting here. And we would call, so this was like a company which will do the pitching and basically organize the angel fund sort of, seminars or conferences or the pitch day. And individuals would put money who are the angel investors, which is nothing to do with the company. Because then it will not fall within the realm or the mischief of NBFC. That's how we structure that. So eventually, and one of the first investment of Mumbai Angel was in Mobi, which became, so great brand. In Mobi, the unicorn. At that time it was called M-Coach, and M-Coach was a hole in the wall in Bombay. They started, and in fact they pivoted also. So I don't know whether your question was how do I sort of screen the startup in which I have to invest. So one of my answer is in that, the startup and the entrepreneur should be, smart enough to understand how the business is going, and he should be ready to pivot. Now coming back to what really sort of attracts me to invest, and this is growing, with India having almost 90,000 startups by now, with 100 unicorns. Maybe this is probably the best what can happen in the last decade in this country. So there are 3-4 things which is like pertinent for me to sort of get into it, and I think it's more like even the global standards, I would say now, it's emerging with time. One being the team. So the team is very important, and not only that, maybe the idea is not that important, frankly speaking, because if there is an idea, what is important is that who executes it well. An idea, you cannot copyright an idea, right? So there could be various people who can get involved. If there's a good team, and what I mean that, if the guy is really passionate and he's walking his passion, I think he will do it. That's for sure. And I have hardly seen anyone, and it's like, if he comes to me, if he pitches to me, he needs to make sure that, I understand what he's talking about. And forget about me, if he can simplify it, what he exactly wants to do, I think he wins half the battle. Then obviously, what product they're building, what is the product market fit. I mean, if you just have something, you've developed something so amazing, but if it doesn't have a market, as an investor, it does not attract me. Though it may have a value proposition, but just as an investor, it will not attract me. Then other thing which is very, very important for me, obviously, is what is the moat in terms of intellectual property, and that's something very important because there are hundreds of e-commerce companies which are coming up. So just going and investing in them doesn't make sense, right? So you have to identify, has those entrepreneurs created some moat around which creates the value? And by value, I would mean that, these guys should be, even if he fails in the business, doesn't matter, but he fails it and he goes and owns that up and say that, look, this is what my passion was, this is what I did, and I could not do it. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. The first one may not be successful, the second will be. But that is very important for us. The team, the passion, the product market fit, the IP around it, and sort of how nimble they are in terms of pivoting the business, in terms of doing that. So these things are the ones which essentially I consider to be very important apart from other things.
Thanks for that, Anand. I'm sure there are a lot of young entrepreneurs out there, and while they're listening to you, in their minds, they're evaluating, okay, I've got a fantastic business idea. Do I have a good fit between the product and the need of the market? Am I really developing some original IP, as you rightfully said? And, are you really passionate about what you want to do? Because passion and sincerity, there's no ways in which you can compensate for that, right? So it really needs to be there. And I really like the idea that you said about people, right? So it's always about the people. I remember earlier we were speaking, Ajitabh, I was talking to you and I was so amazed that, you had such a rich, successful career in banking. I mean, if someone were to look at your career graph, they would be like, wow, that's like an ideal career graph, someone who's progressed significantly up the corporate ladder, holding such a responsible position at Barclays. And then at a certain point you say, all right, I think I'm going to start my own venture. So I'm really keen to understand what really motivated you to actually take that step.
Thank you for this. I think it is, I will say that it was some sort of a happy coincidences. One problem came in front when I was working at Barclays, and there was this very large e-commerce company, and they came out with certain problem set and we were trying to solve for it. And we realized that in the constraints of a banking sector, we can't solve it. If that got us going, then we started digging into that problem, and it was possibly around what exporters are facing nowadays. So we just went ahead, talked to people, and then we realized that, okay, there's a big problem out waiting for the solve. And the one thing which Anand said, that what is the total addressable market, TAM as we call it in this lingo. And we realized that this TAM is running in hundreds of billions of dollars. So then we started going all through. And personally for me, I think this is a bit late in my career, but I think you guys are pretty young, so you can try your luck right now itself. But for me, I think it was some sort of a happy coincidence. I think my wife just got a job, and my kiddo was at a place where he went into teens, and then he was at that point where he doesn't need his parents anymore, as you might have experienced. So that is the time I triggered, okay fine, this is some sort of a nice opportunity is waiting for me, and that's where I took the plunge.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I could not stop myself. So it's like the passion, the TAM. The example I would like to give is like which I always give. It's like the difference between vitamin and aspirin. So it's like okay fine, you can miss out on your vitamin today. You can have it during the weekend, for example. But if you have a headache, you will not miss out on your aspirin. Even if you've driven out of your home, you'll go back, you'll make sure that you bought that because you have a headache. So, I mean, you need to create those aspirants like that. I mean, people have to be desperate about it. Oh, wow, this is like the business. I need to invest.
All right. So, really, you saw a need in the market, and it reminds me of that really old presentation that was made by C.K. Prahlad, where he was talking about the bottom of the pyramid. So, if you look at India, there is so many business opportunities that are awaiting. So, if you look at the challenges that are there in the marketplace today, you can look upon every challenge as a potential opportunity that a business can serve, and I think that's something that Ajitabh did. So, Ajitabh, I wanted to ask you one more question. Coming to Ship 90, how did you take your first few steps? And how did you? At what point did you look for funding?
Yeah, so I think again going back to what I think Anand put a very nice framework around this. So I will just kind of want to share one thought process which I kind of came out with when I was doing management at IIM Ahmedabad. Is that I'm kind of more of an introvert kind of guy, so I thought that maybe I should choose finance instead of sales. And after working for so much in banking, I realized that sales is the thing which everybody has to do, and they continue doing it. And just to give you an example, suppose you guys need to ask some pocket money from your parents, you are basically selling yourself. Mama, give me something, correct? So sales is one thing which is universal. And when you're doing a sales, you realize that this people-to-people connect is the most important thing, correct? So you can't have a sale. You just can't go to your somebody, your friend, and say that okay, in a robotic voice, and say that okay, I want this and that. It can't happen, correct? You need to have a human touch. You need to have a human connect, and that is what is important. So it's very important to have the right set of people, and that's where we started. I got to meet my co-founder via a friend, and then we hit it off. And once we hit it off, we started kind of discussing, talking to various clients, pulling out the phone and doing cold calls. And then once we got this, then we realized that okay, this is the way we put it down on a piece of pen and paper and said okay, this is what it is, this is what we should do. And in one piece of paper, that's where we start work.
All right. I would like to come back to you, Anand, and ask you. So, as an angel investor, you're always evaluating ideas, looking at different startups, and then you came across Ship 90, right? So, if I understand correctly, you invested in Ship 90 as an angel investor. So, I wanted to ask you, what attracted you to Ajitabh and his vision?
So you made my answers very simple. You just answered them actually. So TAM, right? Team, the passion. Then at the helm of the career, the guy decides to walk out and walk the talk. The other co-founder I have known, he's also very passionate. Then it fits right in what the policy changes that are happening right now. ONDC, the digital public networks being set up, the opportunity here. So I think everything fell in place, and I decided to go ahead. Plus, there's something very interesting about Ajitabh is that his passion is not only to the business, but he makes sure that he told me it was amazing that he teaches some kids on the side, and some of these guys got into IIT, right? That's like his pro bono work, and that speaks a lot about him. And that's also one of the things which really attracted me, that these guys are so passionate about things. So let's go ahead with this. Why don't you tell them about these kids?
Yeah, so I think throughout when I was from the time I have been into IIT, I think these physics and maths have been my passion, and whenever I find kids who are looking for some motivation, and I've realized that learning is a process which basically you transfer to the kids. Correct? The excitement about the subject and the way to kind of look at any topic, any issue in a detail. So I don't know whether you know guys about Warren Buffett. So Warren Buffett runs Berkshire Hathaway, but then his friend is Charlie Munger, and he talks about it. I think you guys should kind of go and learn more about Charlie Munger. And he talks about that how the thought process is the most important thing, correct? So thinking is what is missing. And if you start thinking, and he talks about the ways of thinking, is the most important thing which you can apply into the business. And he talks about the Coca-Cola business. And same thing you get taught when you learn about physics, correct? So when you do physics, you understand, you are just forced to think. And that is what I kind of try to kind of impart into these kids. And I've realized that, see, in the end, the learning has to be done by the kids themselves. It is just me as a mentor and a guide, and the nurture is their curiosity. This is what I kept on doing. I think this was my fourth student who went into IIT, and so this way.
That's amazing. I've always found this pretty amazing that sometimes you see people who are successful, they're doing something in their life, and somehow they're able to manage different elements or juggle different items in their life. So on one hand, you're busy building a startup, and trust me, building a startup is not easy. It means a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of late nighters, getting the right team. In fact, when I was speaking to Ajitabh, he was saying that what we've really focused on is really getting the correct set of people to join us in our team. Because once you do that, you can explain to them, you can set out some expectations, and then the team is running with it, and you're just simply monitoring their work. So starting up is no easy thing to do. It takes a lot of grind, I would say. And in spite of that, you're able to do this pro bono work on the side. That's pretty amazing. I think, you know, as an audience here today, we're fairly lucky because on one hand, we have a very successful angel investor. On the other hand, we have a startup that is coming up very strongly. And this is like a live case study because you have an angel investor who's invested in a startup, and we're actually having a informal discussion, you know, about this. It's pretty amazing, I would say. I'd like to ask you, Anand, you know, in terms of the landscape for startups in India, how is that looking? You know, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's a very, very interesting question. Also, it becomes interesting because, you know, the times we are living in is very, very interesting. It's chaotic, it's interesting, you know, it's uncertain, and you know, on one hand you have the Ukraine war going, new global realignments happening, energy crisis, you know, and then on the other hand, central bank also concerned about the inflation, trying to curb the inflation all across the globe. Amidst the entire thing, it's India which is apparently, and I feel that it's the brightest spot right now. Also, you know, we are on the inflection point with consumption, wallet, UPI driven, India being the closed market all this while. I mean, you know, now obviously it's like 100% FDI allowed. We are from a very closed market to an optimistic delight kind of situation, where you know, you have, as I was talking about, that we have 90,000 startups here with 100 unicorns, 225 exits has happened so far. We've had direct transfer to the in the banks, you know, which is I think around 50 crore, which has happened in the last COVID or a couple of years. Then we have the entire network system which is coming up, which is your basically the democratization of the digital platform. I think it's the biggest and the most innovative thing around the world. UPI is, imagine, I mean, the kind of value it's going to, you know, unleash. ONDC, which is going to come. All this while ONDC was just, you know, it was a closed architecture. It was basically you have the consumers, it's a marketplace, and you have the architecture. And now anybody, any small mom and pop shop, even in the small towns, they can just go ahead and they can openly, through the API, they can go into enter the architecture. So the entire trust portability, which moves from there to there, that's going to have immense, that is going to create so much of new opportunities in this country. Anybody who does cataloging, anybody who's creating that kind of tech stack, you know, so I see a massive opportunity, apart from the fact that, you know, there are only 2 countries in the world which is $10 trillion, above $10 trillion economy, and I'm sure that, you know, it's not going to be very hard for India to break into that and become the 3rd largest economy in the world. So I see that coming in with new, we just presented our digital privacy bill a couple of days back. So that is going to become the Digital Data Protection Act we'll be having in India. We will be having Digital Protection, Digital India Act, which is going to replace the IT Act also. So, you know, in many ways, AI is being talked about. We are also already thinking of regulating artificial intelligence. So from an extent that we would just follow things from the West. For example, the whole world followed GDPR from Europe, and they had their own data protection act. Now I think we are moving towards policies where India is already becoming an engine. India is already thinking of laws on AI because we have to. So we have come to a situation, as I said, that from a very close-fisted country to a completely optimistic delight with a 10 trillion economy in dream. I think this place in the next couple of decades is going to see something amazing. So I see a massive opportunity. If you're building a company, this is the time to do here. And earlier, for example, who would go for an entrepreneurial journey? It was very different. Somebody who will not get through engineering, medicine. Nobody would become an entrepreneur, and there was funds not available. Things have completely changed now. We have already given you the ingredients. There is a person who is sitting in front of you. You can ask him how it started. So I think it's for me it's a pretty good landscape for the next decades or so.
Amazing. Thank you, I'd say, for that really comprehensive response, and a lot of optimism, a lot of positivity, I would say. And I'd just like to thank you also for being such a patient audience, and I'd also like to thank our guests for making time. Let's give them a big round of applause.